our next speaker, who is Raed Bakri, who is the Chief Information Officer at Solidarity Saudi Takaful in Saudi Arabia. And here's Raed with us. I think maybe he stepped away for a moment. But like all of us, it looks like, well, I don't know if that's home or not, but one of Saudi's the leading insurance companies, and we thought it was really interesting in thinking about the transformation taking place in insurance to not only get the perspective of an investor and someone who works on the startup side, but also to talk to a large enterprise who's in the midst of this transformation, to understand what they're doing and how this is going to change the industry. But welcome. A pleasure to have you with us. I don't know if you heard, but I was just introducing you, and we're thrilled to have you with us to hear a little bit more about kind of how we see insurance transforming post-COVID in Insurtech, and what you're doing as the CIO of a large insurance company to drive this transformation. So I'm going to kick off directly and ask about the impact of COVID on the insurance industry. And first step is thinking about how do you think consumer behavior might change? And as a result, what kind of products or offerings or business models might disappear or emerge as a result of this transformation? Raed, can you hear me? I think we're facing some technical issues. You can't hear me and I can't hear you. That makes the two of us. Would you try to remove the headphones? Connecting to audio.
Okay, now it's working.
Okay, did you hear the question, or should I repeat?
No, it was a very long question, it looked like. So
well,
I thought you were telling me to wait. So this is part of the whole difficulties we have with the remote working, or agile working, like I call it.
Yes, no, I think we're all figuring out, and we thank the attendees for their patience with us. I was saying, I was actually giving a bit of an introduction about you and also asking a question. But okay. I'll go directly to the question part, which is the kind of COVID changing the world today. If we think about the medium to long-term impact on the insurance industry, first, how do you think this is going to change consumer behavior? And then as a result, what kind of changes will that impact on products, services, or business models in the industry? I'd love to start there.
Okay. For me personally, and Solidarity, I mean, we've seen this whole customer centricity coming from a long time as part of our digital transformation. And I mean, we didn't expect us for COVID to come up where we would be able to, put everything in practice at such a, in such a, I would say a small time. So, in 2018, we've enabled a digital transformation project that would enable our services to be online. And I think this kind of served us very well when the COVID went down, because we were just finalizing our BCP plans before, I would say a month before they actually, there was rumors going around that there was going to be a lockdown and everybody's going to have to work from home. And I mean, we were lucky. I mean, I would say the BCP documents still haven't been signed off on, but we had to put them in effect immediately without fail. And the part we lacked in this area was more of the user awareness, because we haven't been able to do that awareness for our internal users that, in the event of such, a pandemic or infectious disease happening, we would be able to work from home. So nobody was familiar with the concept before. They thought it was something that, that would never happen, and it would be only a handful of people that would have the privilege to work from home, but not realizing that there's such a thing called BCP where you would have to work from home. So it was a huge, I would say, and still is a learning curve that not everybody's used to yet. I think, and what helped us is most of the services that we've launched in 2019 enabled us to be able to kind of have an edge with our consumers to be able to continue to sell our products online and offer our services through our online channels.
So that's regarding about how you've been responding in this crisis.
Yeah.
How are you seeing the customer respond? How are you seeing their changing behavior or expectations? And what do you think that means for your industry? Are there certain types of insurance products that are going to disappear? And are there certain types of insurance products that you think are going to emerge as new and compelling offerings?
Yeah. And I think that, yes, definitely, there's always room for improvement when it comes to, different insurance products that we can offer. Of course, always after, when everything settles down and the lessons learned, this is where we'll be able to analyze and understand, what kind of new products we can offer our consumers. But in terms of their behavior and purchasing, I mean, for the longest time, everybody has kind of moved away from the traditional way of purchasing insurance and looking at alternatives. And in Saudi Arabia, we have aggregators. Aggregators are insurance aggregators. Basically, they have services that link up with all the insurance companies, and they're able to offer you all the insurance products. I mean, you would go in, put in your vehicle details, your own details, and then you would get quotations for pretty much from all insurance companies that are participating in this aggregation facility. And for the longest time now, I would say the last 2 years, we've seen a shift in the traditional way where you walk in and purchase an insurance through either an agent or one of the company's branches to online. Purchasing it sitting in a coffee shop from your phone. Nobody likes to carry any papers around anymore, so it's all digital. You get the PDF by email with the policy certificate, and I mean, the adoption has been very quick, I would say, from a digital perspective with our consumers as well when it comes to purchasing insurance products. I mean, little by little, the regulators are kind of easing up on what products we can offer online. But right now, we offer 5 products. We have a license for 5 products, which is motor insurance, comprehensive, third-party liability. We have medical through one of our aggregators, medical malpractice, travel, as well as forget the last one.
I can imagine demand for travel insurance is through the roof right now.
No, absolutely not. But one of the products that we thought would take a bigger hit was the visitor insurance. I mean, we still have visitor insurance coming in because I wouldn't say they're actually getting on the plane and traveling here, but they've purchased it, I would 6, 9, 10 months ago. And basically the way the logic is built, it would initiate the activation on the expected entry date. So, and this is premium that is continue to come. So we're yet to see on, what happens in terms of reimbursing these users or extending it to a new activation date so that they don't lose their visitor insurance. Now, from a tourism visa, health insurance product is mandatory for anybody visiting Saudi Arabia for the approved countries. That's on hold. We haven't received any since the whole lockdown was announced.
Got it. Well, let's move into technology. I think it's been interesting to hear this. Let's imagine what insurance looks like in 5 years in this new post-COVID world.
Yeah.
What are some of the key tech trends that you think are going to be incorporated in the insurance industry, and how do you see the sector adapting? And some of the ones that I'll throw out are things around data, Internet of Things, telematics, mobility, all of these trends.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear. Well, let's start there. But which trends do you think are going to be the earliest adopted and going to have the most kind of near-term impact, and which do you think are less mature? It's a more of a medium-term investment. So we start with kind of the key tech trends and how they're transforming the industry, which ones will be adopted sooner and which ones are a little bit less mature.
Absolutely. I think, telematics has been on the table for a very long time right now, but in terms of, anybody, willing or ready to install any type of device where we have access to their movement is still kind of frowned upon. Nobody is really interested in doing that. Yet alone, they would have to pay for the hardware that we install unless we can, purchase it in such bulk that we're able to install it for free under a certain package. But again, nobody is going to be willing to do that unless some perks come with it. So, and some of these perks would be, where our services would say, like, pay as you go, and usage-based insurance, where you start that car, you start driving, basically you buy a monthly package that has, we'll say, 200 kilometers on it per month, and it'll be at a fixed cost per kilometer, depending on the amount of kilometers you get. And only then I think we'd see an adaptation in that. But as far as usage-based insurance, definitely I see there is a use case with that without telematics, but still we would need to identify a way of how we would track the usage of that insurance, or because some people have a huge fleet of cars. Not all those cars are being used at the same time, so this would be an attractive product for them. And especially in situations like now, everybody has insurance, but it's no use right now because nobody's out driving. So usage-based insurance would be a very good product to have in the very near future. And in the event of such a pandemic happening, you would be able to, if your vehicle's not moving, you're not paying, basically. So it would be a month-to-month, top-up plus your subscription.
What about drones? Do you see those having an interesting?
Yeah. For drones, I've seen a lot of videos going around now with the Domino's delivery car, which is basically a self-driving car, but it only operates within a specific district in the US. So I mean that's working out. As far as drones, it's kind of too early because a lot of regulation would have to come in and then so that they can map out the air traffic and all this. This is pretty much just like running an airport, but in city. I mean, if we get there in the near future. So as far as traffic accident assessment, yes, I think that we should have some type of drones that are able to get to the premises where the accident happened a lot quicker than the vehicles, and that just assess the situation so that when the rescue services get there, they understand what to expect during that time. So
right, I'm going to take a question because it's kind of repeated a few times. People are interested to understand about regulation. What are the attitudes of regulators towards Insurtech? How has this changed in light of COVID? Have they changed their attitude? Would love to, if we can expand a bit on regulators, how they are reacted to facilitate the new status quo from a tech perspective. And as well, how insurance tech companies are perceived from regulators. In Saudi and more broadly, anything you can tell us about that would be very interesting.
I mean, Insurtech is a very broad, I would say, word when it comes to what kind of technology we can operate within the in insurance industry. So for me, Insurtech could be a bot on my website that answers a set of questions, that a predefined set of questions. What would you install? Let me just minimize this, asking me to install some things.
No, sorry. We were just trying something interesting. You were saying users may not be ready to install devices in their cars to monitor their driving. And so I actually thought, let's ask our audience. And we asked a small little poll, which says, would you be willing to install a device in your car that monitors your driving with the hope that if you're a good driver, you would save money on your insurance? So this actually is a question for our attendees. If you can take a moment to answer it, then we'll share back the insights with you, Raed.
Oh, okay. I thought it was asking me to install something.
No, so we're going to ask it to everyone's on the session, because this is coming back to the commentary that you were saying today, that users are still concerned about their privacy, have issues with kind of installing such devices. So we thought, why don't we ask the audience what they think of this? But I'll just get back to you on return us to the question of the regulators, how are they perceiving things, and how did this change as a result of COVID?
Yeah, I mean, they're very interested in new ideas, new ways of doing things. I mean, for instance, one of the new ideas that were, I mean, nobody ever thought we'd be able to sell a small to medium-sized enterprise medical insurance online. So the regulators offered it to the aggregator, and the aggregator was able to push it forward. And together, collaborating with the insurance companies, one of the ideas that Solidarity has was to digitize the health declaration form, basically, so that they can declare pre-existing or non-existing conditions. Basically, it's a set of 5 questions. Previously, that was more of a document that you had to print out, sign off, and say no, I don't have any of these, and then sign on it. So right now we're working with Ta'mini. We've already launched the service, and it's doing quite well. We've I would say industrialized the whole medical SME online, and now we're able to sell it without any human interaction. It's all done online, so no signatures required, but there is basically the digital signature. So that yeah.
Ta'mini is a startup?
No, Ta'mini is the
Government.
first, it is the first company to get an aggregator license, where they're able to aggregate the products from other insurance companies on a single page, where you can compare and that. But one of the trends we've noticed is people would go to the aggregators, get a whole price list, and then if the company offers the same insurance directly on their website, they'll bounce off of there and go to the directly and buy it from the website. So it's huge competition, but everybody benefits in the end. I mean, and this is what has enhanced the online presence for insurance companies, is the aggregation facilities. Ta'mini, Ta'minak, and then you have FAL brokers also. Several companies are coming up. I think ACE also just recently got approved for an aggregator license. And honestly, for me, this is like an Insurtech initiative. And I think that a lot of the agencies that are out there will no longer exist the next 2 to 3 years, because right now they're taking the heaviest hit, because their focus was traditional customer base. They would have to meet with the customers, and that's how they would sell their insurance. They have a deal with a brokerage, we'll call it, but they're basically agencies that sell insurance products for one particular insurance company that they sign up with. And we've had a couple of meetings today with some of the agencies, and they're suffering because they didn't expect this. And it's funny because this particular agency, I told them about a year ago, you guys should work on getting your aggregator license, and it'll be a lot better for you guys, because 2-3 years down the line, nobody's going to want to buy insurance by face to face. So
I think that's it's a very interesting insight, and one of those things which eventually this employs a lot of people, right? Agents who are out there selling in the market.
Absolutely.
I would be curious if you think that there are going to be fewer of those types of jobs. We had a question earlier that I think is interesting, which is about what kind of jobs you think insurance companies will be hiring more of, and which kind of job roles insurance companies will be hiring less of in the future.
I put this out there 6 months ago, and made a lot of people mad. But I think basically our salespeople need to be retrained if they want to continue to operate in a sales capacity. And from an underwriting perspective, it would be best our kind of a back-end reviewer, because one of our critical plans as a part of our Insurtech and digital initiatives is to industrialize the corporate insurance selling. Because right now we sell individual products online, and that's what's authorized. But the one that's going to win in this insurance market in the future is the one that can deliver the corporate functions, where they're able to book business for, I would say, a group policy, a big company, and manage everything without even picking up the phone and calling, the insurance company.
I actually think this is a trend across the board. B2C companies are very sexy and appealing. B2B companies, we don't hear as much about. And I think today, with the digital transformation imperative that's come out of COVID, this is a huge opportunity for people who are able to tackle the B2B space. Another question I'm actually going to take from our attendees is about cyber insurance. And if there's an expectation that it will peak in light of this digital transformation, if there'll be a proliferation of different types of services. If you could tell us your thoughts on the future of cyber insurance and how that's going to grow.
Not many companies offer cyber insurance right now, but some of the bigger insurance companies in the market offer it, but they offer it through third-party, I would say, agents or agencies. I mean, we've done a cyber insurance, as part of, just the due diligence from our side in the event of anything ransomware, any kind of critical failure that happens. But it's very specific. So I think it would be an extreme hassle when it comes time to do the claims part for this one. So this is why they kind of keep it at a cap, and you're not really getting insured for your full operations in the event of a catastrophe, because they assume you have a DR or a DR and BCP plan to continue operations in the event of some catastrophic event.
So within cyber, given that it's so specific, do you believe that this is an opportunity for more new companies to provide niche services in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. They would definitely have to, hire the right people that understand it and can underwrite it in a very specific way, so that they ensure that, because at the end of the day, insurance companies, they're not in the business to lose money. They're in the business to make money. And a lot of times it takes some extreme due diligence to make sure that you're able to assess the person that's going to insure with you, and make sure that everything stated on that document is true. Because when we did our cyber insurance policy, nobody called us, nobody visited us. So it was kind of just a form. We fill it out, we send it in. They had a couple more questions. Okay, this is how much you got to pay. Thank you. Here's your policy. So, but it could mean, this is probably because it was fixed, and they don't mind taking the risk in this area, but still it's very critical, and it really depends on the sum insured.
Interesting. Let's move to another question. COVID must be a kind of a big boost for CTOs everywhere who have been saying we need to digitally transform ourselves or die. And all of a sudden now this is clear to everyone, even though it was clear before, but it's just accelerated right now for all corporations. I'd love to hear from you. What are your top priorities now as the CTO driving this internally? What are the big challenges that you face? And we have a question as well on this topic from one of our attendees. What are the things that are going to be mandatory for you to keep in-house versus to be able to put on the cloud or to go fully digitized?
Okay, let me with the cloud. We'll start with that. That's kind of frowned upon by our regulators over here, because as far as data is concerned, your systems need to be in the kingdom. You cannot host any customer data, any personal information outside of the kingdom. So that cloud would have to be in the kingdom for you to be able to utilize a cloud service in the financial sector. Okay. So they have very strict guidelines on that. And honestly, for me, I rather, what we've done in 2019 is we brought the cloud to us. We've installed a hyper-converged infrastructure, basically, which is a private cloud on premise, and deployed some proprietary technologies that we were able to secure with some of the leading vendors like Intel and VMware. And we had the luxury of running some of this technology for 1 year for ourselves exclusively, which gave us kind of an edge in terms of the competition and speed that we're able to transact online on our hyper-converged infrastructure. So me personally, I don't think we're ready to move to the cloud, although I like the idea, but honestly, I haven't seen much cost reduction when it comes to running within the cloud, because you could easily lose track of your capacity and not realize it until you get that invoice. And this is what I've seen a lot of times, even with our local cloud providers over here. Some companies were hit with some very, big amounts to maintain, and they decided to bring it back on premise. I mean, yes, it's a bigger
Won't
hassle.
the regulator today start to
Yeah.
change also their thinking on this? With everything moving so quickly online, the regulator will have to take both a more open approach, and I'm speaking here from my own, like I don't know anything specifically, but I would naturally guess all these transactions have to go online. I will have to regulate that sector, but allow the transactions to happen. I'll have to protect myself, but be more open. Don't you see that happening?
Me personally, I'm kind of with the idea that data should not travel outside of the kingdom, that it should be routed within the kingdom, and there should be providers internally or in the kingdom that are able to handle that process.
But within the kingdom, you're fine with it being in a cloud?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is their stances. As long as it's in the kingdom and does not leave or is routed outside through external services, they're fine with it. Because a lot of the insurance companies, were established here through acquisition. And a lot of those systems were external and not local in Saudi Arabia. So they were actually processing the data outside of the kingdom and then bringing it back. So this kind of puts I would say, a security risk on the data, where somebody could capture all that data and then start building a repository and selling it or doing whatever they do with the data once they get a hold of it. So.
And of course, this is the challenge, but I'll move to another question, which is similar or built on data. Today, open data. There's a huge promise for open data to allow innovation, exposing some data through specific APIs for specific platform partners potentially. Is this a space that you see emerging? Is it something you're looking at, and is it something that you see emerging more broadly in the Insurtech space?
In terms of APIs and web services and that's where the aggregators come in. I mean, it's basically a set of services that we connect with our backend systems, and we're able to offer access to our calculation engines, where we're able to, every time, hey, do you have the price for this car? Yes, I do. Here you go, and kind of service the clients through the aggregator by providing pricing for certain insurance products. I mean, API is not really, our web service is not really a new thing in Saudi Arabia. We use it currently right now with Ilm. Right now, the only two pieces of information I need to capture anybody's data is their national ID, basically our resident number, plus the date of birth. And I'm able to call an internal service through the National Information Center, that is a service provided by Ilm company, which is a security company, to serve me that data. So they come back with 12 different sets of our fields, basically your first name, your middle name, your last name, your date of birth, your address. Basically, all that information is pulled. So really, like for online, for instance, to purchase a vehicle insurance, it's 3 steps and takes less than 2 minutes.
But do you foresee? I mean, because even Ilm is semi-governmental, right? And it's owned by the government essentially. Do you see opening more APIs to entrepreneurs, to setting up structured APIs and open data that people can build their own apps on top of, helping?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the good things about in Saudi Arabia is in 2020 there was a incubation budget put in place that is about, I believe it was 1 billion riyals. So anybody that has a good idea can do the study and go and apply for it. And basically the government has a fund set up for that, and they'll incubate you. They're open to competitiveness, basically. And for sure, yes, we need a company that can compete with Ilm. There are already a few companies that do that right now, that provide the same data services, because at the end of the day, Ilm, once it was privatized, they get the services through the National Information Center, and then they resell those services for whatever cost X. And
for me, it's not even just the same data that you're pulling. My question is as well if they have data, they might be able to build new and interesting features or customer experience. that might be compelling.
Yeah.
The same way that today an aggregator is providing a value add service, leveraging APIs from across multiple stakeholders.
Absolutely. I mean, look, one of the services, that, I thought would be kind of enhance or enrich the customer experiences is we have our national system called Abshir, basically where it has all your information, all your vehicle information, whether you have insurance or not. And basically through that portal, you're able to renew your passport, update your national address, and do all these facilities. So one of the great things they provide is when you log into Abshir, depending on the vehicles you have, it'll actually pull up the logo. So right now in insurance, it's very specific. When you go in, you'd have to actually type in or key in the sequence number. So one of the new services that I've been trying to push Ilm to convince NIC to provide is to give us a facility where I can pop my ID number in, our national ID in, and it should come back with just the logos of the vehicles, and then I can just click on the logo of the vehicle, knowing that this is, for instance, my Nissan, my Toyota, my BMW, and just click on that, and then basically it'll call that information based on me clicking on a picture rather than having to key in that information, because not everybody carries around their vehicle registration and have access to that sequence number.
Great. Raid, I want to ask you kind of, I see our time is wrapping up quickly, and you have a wealth of information. We'd love to keep getting more from you. Maybe I'll ask two more questions. One from our audience.
I got all the time. I got time. It's not a problem, Omar.
Okay, amazing.
Yep.
The first is, and it looks like I'm having some issues with my charger, so I might disappear. If I do, go ahead and I'll jump back in as soon as I can.
Okay.
The first question I have is really around fraudulent claims and what it means for buying insurance online, right? How are you working on doing more due diligence, gathering information, and how are you leveraging that information to price risk? And also, how do you manage the potential for more fraud online?
Okay. Now, there is a lot of fraud that happens online. I really can't, elaborate on it here, but one of the things that we've done to manage this area and risk is to put in specific controls. Now, when we talk about controls, one of the conditions and one of the SAMA circulars, when selling online or selling a policy, you have to capture the user's IBAN number, basically, which is his account information, so that in the event that he cancels it, you have that IBAN number so that you can do the refund to his bank account directly, because you have 14 days to process a refund in the event of somebody canceling. So one of the controls we put in place is because we've identified that a lot of I call them showrooms, the car showrooms, ma'arad, the sayarat, they would actually say, oh, I can get you some cheap insurance, and then they would go online, taking advantage of the online and I would say the technological illiteracy of the person purchasing that vehicle, and charge them double the amount. When he would purchase the policy or third-party liability for 500 riyals, he would charge the client 1,000 riyals, and he would put in his IBAN number as the dealer, the car showroom. So what will happen is they usually take a third-party liability, and then they would go shop around for insurance to buy a comprehensive policy. And when it comes time to cancel that policy, they realize that every time they put in the IBAN number that supposedly was supposed to be put in the beginning for canceling the policy is not registering. It just says that there's a mismatch in the IBAN number. There's a mismatch in the IBAN number. So this is one of the areas how we control fraud online, and kind of limit every ID number to 5 policies. So, when we first launched online, we didn't have these controls, and we had one showroom, and I would say 2 days and a half, book 500 policies just through one ID number. And then this is, one of the things we captured, and we said, okay, we need to put a control on this, or a cap on it. And we've come up with, that realistically somebody can own a maximum of 5 cars. So
I think that Sounds like a reasonable enough number, 5 cars.
Yeah,
That's five more than I own.
Oh,
So
yeah. So I mean, the arguments were endless on what was going to be the number that we put as the cap. So, I mean, you had people put 20, some put 15, and everybody that was, said 20, everybody kind of gave him a stare. He might have running a taxi company or, an Uber operation or Kareem operation, and a lot of times that's what it is people are running some kind of taxi services, and they're insuring all their vehicles one shot with that one ID number, and the vehicles are actually registered as private and not commercial. So and that's another control that we put to manage our risk in terms of the clients that we like to attract, is we do not sell commercial vehicle insurance on our website. We only sell private vehicles. So if your vehicle is registered as commercial, we will not accept it. And we're able to call this data through one of the NIC services to identify that and say that this is a commercial vehicle. We're sorry, please contact this number. And then we deal with them through the other way. Because if he wants to insure a huge volume of vehicles, that would be a small group policy, and it would be referred to the underwriting people. And this is where, he would have to have a claims experience come in. And one of the things that's good for us is Najm provides a service. Basically, if you're 5 years clear of accidents, for a TPL policy, you're able to render a 50% discount. And for a comprehensive, you're able to render a 60% discount. And this is all for your good behavior. So this kind of answers one of the questions that we've had earlier, where the government is involved in providing these facilities, and it's mandatory. You don't have a choice in it. It's through the regulators. Basically, if you have a 5-year clean record and you always insure your vehicle, you can have 1 month gap, I think. Otherwise, it resets it back to 0. For every year, you can achieve 10% discount besides your loyalty, which is also another discount of 10% that you can earn through insuring with the same company. And that's mandatory. And any company not offering that 10%, if you renew with them the following year, basically you can raise it to Sama and they'll make sure you get your 10% back.
Amazing. So I'll ask you another question. Insurtech now, in terms of startups, we're starting to see a lot more Insurtech startups in the Middle East, more interest in this space, accelerators that are launching to support Insurtech. Curious to hear if Solidarity Takaful has plans to play in the Insurtech space with startups. If you have a plan to engage as a partner, investor, acquirer, and if COVID has affected those plans in terms of your relationship with startups.
I mean, we've had a couple of startups come and offer us their offerings. Some of them, had to do with specific features where it would be a fraud indicator system on your medical policies. Would say they knew of 15 different metrics that they've built, and they can analyze it through your database and understand whether is it positive? Yes, it's fraud. Is it negative? And this is something that we're exploring, because yes, we'd definitely like to reduce the amount of fraud that happens. And sometimes you have too many claims that where a human is not able to keep up with it. So you need to have some kind of assistance through the systems, or artificial intelligence today. But and then I've tapped into this the AI segment and try to understand where can we utilize AI. And honestly, I don't think it's mature enough yet to use in any industry really, because the investment is significant and it's still kind of a big research pool, I would say, because only I think 3 or 4 sentiment engines actually exist out there that you're able to use to have a true artificial intelligence system. Otherwise, it's just a lookup table with fixed answers and so on.
Sorry, just to bring us back, you are working with startups. One area that you've been interested in is kind of fraud.
AI, identify using AI to automate and do different type of robotic work.
And in this case, is your model that you'll pursue kind of more as a customer to these startups or a partner, Or do you see yourselves taking a bigger role where you might be an investor?
This is the stance I have in convincing our board, is if we identify a startup that we are really interested in, I would help them build the case, and we can somehow incubate them and invest in them. And this is, always, because I was on the other side at one point in my life, and I wish people had the mindset that I had right now towards this. I mean, because you can demotivate these guys by just kind of saying, "No, I'm sorry, I can't meet you." I'm sure anybody can clear 30 minutes out of their day to meet with anybody, really, to hear what they have. And definitely, yes. Definitely, for sure, Solidarity is interested in incubating, great ideas, I would say, because even for me, it's the culture that we're trying to promote is the best idea always wins. In that culture of change, I mean, no matter where it's coming from, everybody is able to challenge even senior managers on ideas that are great ideas, and they'll definitely get the support if it's such a great idea.
And so beyond process automation, artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
what are some areas that you think are hot that you might be interested in startups to come and pitch to you?
I'm a cryptocurrency advocate. I've been in it from the beginning, and I was a miner before I ran 2 Bitcoin mining centers, and
Oh, wow.
I've mined Ethereum, Zcash, everything from the beginning. And I mean, it was great, but the thing is there wasn't a lot of information out there about it. But the underlying technology, which is blockchain, is something that we're interested in, and smart contracts, because the systems of the future are I would say the insurance platforms are contract platforms, because in reality it's a contract. Is going to be on blockchains. I mean, because blockchains are not built for speed; they're built for I would say non-repetition and integrity, and to have a proper audit trail. So no matter what you do, you can always understand what happened on this certain contract, whether there was an endorsement, a modification, an addition, a deletion, everything's there. It's everywhere. Everybody has a copy of it, and you kind of split that whole, core system where you don't have to give the auditors access to your core system. You can give them access to your blockchain, and they're able to understand everything they need through the blockchain and audit trail, basically, to understand the audit trail, which is, a thing definitely we're looking at, but not in the near future. We're looking at something like that, inshallah, in 2023. So, I mean, if we're still here, right?
I hope so. I hope so. I'd like to, just before we wrap up, I'll give you the answers. We had 32 people answer the poll about their instrument in their car. 75% of them said that they would be willing to install the device in their car that monitors their driving if it could help them get a better insurance
Absolutely. Rate. And one of the things is hopefully, our idea is because we've identified this area, and the poll that we've done was huge, and people were against it, and even the Ministry of Interior was against it. So what was the way to get away with it is to build it in an application. You can turn on tracking and the mobile app. Basically, you're able to track through the accelerometer on specific phones that has an advanced accelerometer, your basically your acceleration, deceleration, turning, and everything through Google Maps. And Google Maps provides all these APIs that you can integrate and possibly use. I haven't really looked at it yet, but I'm sure there is a service out there through Google that's going to be able to provide that. Because just like with the COVID-19, when they told in the US, when they told them they were basically not going to school, everybody decided to go to Florida, California, and go to the beaches. They were able to identify, I would say it's an invasion of privacy, yes, but they were able to identify these huge groups partying at the beach through Google. Basically put out the alert, and that's where they went and broke it up and told everybody they have to go home because of the whole pandemic, and they could infect each other if anybody was a carrier.
Well, I think that COVID is going to force us to ask a lot of questions about privacy what we do with our data, what we think is acceptable for the government to do with our data, for even our own health and safety. And I think in some countries that won't be a question. It'll simply be a policy that the government enacts. And in other places, it will be a debate with the citizens to understand what that looks like. That's a maybe slightly different and more philosophical conversation, but one that I'm personally very interested in. But I'll wrap up with one last question, which is today, what's your advice to business leaders who are today leading business digital transformation in their organizations?
I mean, there's 5 areas that we've looked at to make sure that even our users at home are comfortable, and you know, I have them up here. I put them up so because we put a plan in place for our risk is you know, to make sure that, you know, your human resources management and systems are readily available for anything that's required, and kind of loosen up some of the requirements in that area if any of the employees need anything through the HR department. You know, make sure that everybody has a clear business functions and processes, and they're able to, you know, collaboration. So a collaboration, your internal communication, and then your communication with your external customers, I think is the most important part, because, you know, just because, you know, we're working from home doesn't mean all the projects stop. I mean, especially when it comes to IT, we're able to collaborate and use the tools that exist out there within, of course, the company's policies, and kind of loosen up some policies where, you know, we're not too, everything's locked down, you know, because one of the things is like Zoom that we're using right now. You know, we're kind of hesitant whether do we keep it open, do we close it, and that. But more when we understood more about the whole Zoom exploit or zero-day exploit that was there, I think we became more comfortable with still using it. But now when you are on the domain, it's not going to function. But outside of the domain, it's fine to use. So I mean, I think collaboration is very important. And making sure that you know, you keep close contact with your teams, regular meetings, you know, just be available. You know, just because you're home doesn't mean you know, you're gonna, you know, sleep with the phone next to you, and you know, every time it rings, you're gonna pick it up and, you know, start kind of discussing. It takes you 5 minutes to wake up, and then you understand what the other person is talking about. You know, it's just very interesting times. So
I think it'll be. I think we're all kind of experiencing this kind of blurring of the lines between work and life and play. And on that note, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's been a pleasure having you. We had so many questions, and I'm really impressed by, you know, you're going through them and answering some of them directly. I think there might be some additional technical ones. If you'd like to kind of, we can share those with you later. But really appreciate your time joining us and sharing your insights. And you can see here the post results. 76% said that they would implement the device. So thank you also to our attendees for joining us, and we'll look forward to catching up. We have another session coming up on Thursday about the future of banking and fintech. So we welcome you all to join us then. Thank you all. Thank you again, Raed, and stay safe, and looking forward to seeing you hopefully in person again soon.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Shukran.